Nina, tell me about Daenerys Targaryen.
Okay, so basically, depending on who you ask and which season you're watching, Daenerys Targaryen is either a hashtag girl boss or she-Hitler, but with dragons.
What's the split on that whole dynamic?
Like 70-30? She's mostly a feminist hero, but she also burns people alive whenever they're rude to her and gets really psyched when her terrible brother dies on account of the molten gold being poured over his head. But it's not really her fault. I watched that happen to my uncle once, and honestly, it was pretty hilarious.
Family stuff.
You get it. The Targaryens are famously nuts. There's even a saying about them. Every time a Targaryen is born, blah blah blah, be crazy.
Nina, that doesn't sound like the real quote.
Anyway, Daenerys comes from a long line of whack jobs with terrible wigs. Her dad, whose high school nickname was the Mad King, really wanted to do a mass murder, so one of his own guards stabbed him to save the world. This is the closest you'll get to any foreshadowing in a series that famously did not plan ahead.
Yay!
So at first, Daenerys seems like she's not really in charge of much. Her creepy brother marries her off to Aquaman, so she has to lug around some chunky dragon eggs all the time, and then her husband dies of an infected boo-boo, and also witchcraft.
And that's why I always use Neosport. Keeps the witches away.
So Daenerys does what any chattel-turned-grieving widow would do. She sets herself on fire and emerges naked from the ashes with 3 baby dragons and Katy Perry's Roar playing faintly in the background. It's kind of like the time that this guy dumped me to Denny's, so I set every Denny's in the tri-state area on fire. And also Perkins.
You did what?
Anyway, Daenerys hits a roadblock when her emotional support lizards get kidnapped. She spends a really long time wandering around yelling, "Where are my dragons?" at anyone who will listen.
What happens to the bloodthirsty killer little dragons? Where did they go?
A house with a bunch of magicians.
Those poor dragons.
So Daenerys goes to the magic house and gets really mad at those no-good magicians, and she steals her dragons back.
And how does she do that?
She sets the magicians on fire.
Huh.
Daenerys then develops a new hobby. She goes to a bunch of places run by slavers and frees all the slaves and kills the masters and explodes a bunch of stuff in the process. Like this one time this guy wants one of her dragons.
How does she get out of that pickle?
She sets him on fire.
Oh, right.
Daenerys nopes on out of one of her newly claimed kingdoms because everyone's really mad and trying to stab her, and she ends up stealing an army from a bunch of burly Aquaman dudes.
How does she steal an entire army?
She sets the Aquamans on fire.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I keep forgetting about fire.
That's a pretty common thing where old Dany T-Bone is concerned. She burns some bad dudes alive and then she tells the leftover army, "You don't have to come with me if you don't want to, but you also just saw me do a very hot murder. So either you're psyched about my godlike powers or you just don't want to get flame broiled too."
What a lack of understanding of workplace power dynamics.
See, you get it. It's kind of like the time I wanted the Johnson account at work, but they gave it to Rebecca because she's better at her job and not a suspected diner arsonist, so I burned the building down and all the buildings around it within a 10-block radius and fled the state and put on this wig and got facial reconstruction and changed my name.
Nina, what'd you do?
Listen, Tom, some women in the workplace don't have built-in fire machines like dragons. Some of us have to put in the effort. Some of us have to go above and beyond. Anywho, Daenerys Ex Machina is always there to save the day.
Give me some examples.
Bunch of bad folks trying to transport gold from one place to another? Flambe those fuckers.
Nice.
Need ships to get across the ocean? Burn some baddies and steal them.
Super.
Trying to capture an ice zombie to use as proof for a violent sociopathic queen who won't care either way? Show up with an undefeatable dragon in record time.
And then what happens to the undefeatable dragon?
It gets defeated.
Do I just not like TV?
Tom, it's not TV. It's HBO.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, it makes perfect sense when you consider that as the show starts to come to a close, every single character seems to start doing whippets off screen, and Daenerys is no exception.
I love inhalants. What are some examples?
Well, that defeated undefeatable dragon from earlier, he gets his dick kicked in for no real reason at all.
Sure.
Then Daenerys starts sleeping with her nephew boyfriend, Jon Snow.
I'm sorry, she starts sleeping with who?
And she also flies a couple dragons right over a fleet of ships armed with a bunch of dragon-killing Nerf blasters, and then she's real surprised when one of her dragons gets Nerf blasted.
Rats.
That's when things get dark for our girl Daenerys. She's down another dragon, her favorite intern gets her head chopped off, and her nephew Slampiece gets it in his head that he doesn't want to bang his aunt anymore. So she does a little mass murder.
Trying to be more like her crazy dad?
Well, the official logline is that some bells make her mad, but yeah, that's basically why.
Yeah, I guess that tracks. Bells fucking suck!
So that's pretty much it. Daenerys went nuts because she didn't like the town's ringtone. Because sometimes when you're writing something, like a hit HBO fantasy show or a weekly web-based cartoon, whatever this is, you just sometimes have to abruptly end shit in a really stupid way.
I guess that makes sense. Oh.